Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Calvin with Your Species. I'm talking fast because I got to talk fast. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of ground to cover. This series that I'm doing now is part of my love and affiliation for the Garden State Film Festival. I've been hanging around them for 10, 11, 12 years. I love the whole notion of indie films. I'm an indie author. And now I'm with some amazing filmmakers, and I'm talking to MIKAELA Shwer and Liz Ianelli, who made The Kids Are Not All Right. It's a documentary. It took me years to make. And as I'm going through my due diligence as a journalist and trying discovering stuff, it was one of the biggest oh wows that this stuff has gone on and under our eyes with the troubled teen industry. I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of it. It's so, I don't know what the right words. It's so outrageous that these things go on, and they've tackled this, and it's innervated me, and it's made me aware there's just so much stuff going on in our world and that we're just not aware of. And they spent so many years doing this. So that's quite a journey. I'm honored, really honored that you guys come on here and so my monologue is over. I always used to watch Johnny Carson's monologue. That was a cute monologue. I don't do anything like Johnny Carson, but this is serious. This is, serious stuff. So thank you, Liz and MIKAELA, for coming aboard. And why don't you just do a little background stuff, and then we're going to jump in and talk about your film. Take it away.
Sure. I'm MIKAELA Shwer. I'm an editor and filmmaker in Los Angeles. And I met Liz about 9 years ago on a trip to New York, and we've been on this journey for that whole time.
That's-
I'm Liz Ianelli, and I was filmed as one of the stories that's featured in the film. The Kids Are Not All Right.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. Let's tell everybody what the film's about.
So, The Kids Are Not All Right is a film about the troubled teen industry, which is a system of network of programs, so boot camps, wilderness programs, residential therapeutic programs that claim to treat troubled teens. And so this has been going on for decades. And I grew up and I knew a lot of kids who were sent to these programs. They use a lot of controversial tactics. And then when there really is an oversight and looking at who's looking after these kids, then there tends to be additional abuse afterwards. And so our film really looks a bit at the time spent there, but really mostly of the long-term effects after you leave these places. So each one of our contributors, it's about 20 years after the fact that they went there.
Um, so MIKAELA, what in particular drew you to this whole story? Um,
So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and I knew a lot of kids who were sent away. A kid from my high school died pretty horrifically in one of these places at that time, and I didn't think that much about it after that. It was just, but kids would kind of disappear from high school. And in 2015, I moved to Los Angeles actually to make a project about a cult group called Synanon. And the more I researched that group, I actually realized they helped to start this industry. And I started to do more research about the troubled teen industry. And it was doing an interview with Maya Salovitz, who is an incredible author and journalist. And she really connected the dots for me, both in terms of the connection with the cult, but also just the long lasting effects of these places. I think that's just something that nobody had really stopped to think about. I think when kids come out of these programs and particularly turn to bad behaviors, drugs, anything like that, most people will say, well, they were a bad kid. They were sent to these places. So that's just who they are. And I felt like nobody actually stopped to ask if anything had happened in those places that maybe kids were reacting to afterwards. The suicide rate of people who come out of these programs is alarmingly high. Um, and so that just became a story that I really wanted to share and I thought was really important. I met Maya Salovitz in October of 2015, and it was the same week that John Martin Crawford, who was a big activist in this space, died by suicide. And I met Liz, who is one of John Martin Crawford's best friends, within days of that, just to kind of start a conversation. Um, and yeah, and she was very kind to allow me in her life and really be able to show, the long-term effects.
So how did you two come together to work on this story?
So Maya Salovitz put us in
That's it? Okay.
journalist.
Okay. Okay. So that was the piece of energy. Um, Liz, what made you want to share your story so publicly? And part of this is your story. I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I don't think at first I really considered um like how publicly, my story was going to be shared. Um I really thought I was just going to give an interview, and I was unfamiliar with filmmaking or, participating in these kinds of projects. So it just kind of I would say it just organically evolved into something that kind of became part of my every or my life, you know.
What was the process? You're now involved in filming. What was the process of filming all this like for you? Emotionally, and how did you feel about it?
I felt different ways at different points in filming. I think that's to be expected. I felt often empowered by filming because I was hoping that the message would continue out, about the harms and long-term dangers, by me being so open and so vulnerable and just allowing and trusting MIKAELA to come so close into my life. I felt that if I was gonna be part of any kind of project of this gravity, that I would have to allow them to come, all the way in. Um, and that I think, oh, that's my dog. I'm sorry.
That's
Um,
fine. I love dogs. That's fine. You can put the dog in
sorry,
the lap. Fine.
like totally like someone drove by. Um, but yeah, and I didn't know at first, like, oh, this film is gonna end up being a 9, 10 year project. Like that wasn't really like it wasn't really discussed as to how long this may or may not go on, So, um, I learned a lot about myself. I mean, and there were times where I was going through a lot of pain and I let them in. And there were times when I was going through a little less pain and I let them in, But yeah, it was definitely a journey and like a lot of growth and evolution from it.
Off topic before, actually, uh, not off topic, but the film took 9 years to make. Uh, in doing that 9 years, I mean, the world's changed a whole bunch of times during those 9 years. Did the film change over time from when you first started it to now?
Yeah,
And did you ever think when you started it 9 years ago it would take 9 years?
I definitely did not think it would take 9 years. So that is why that conversation was not had. There's no way I thought that this would take
Oh,
9
that's
years.
so funny. Okay.
But like I think like it did change, twofold. I think like big picture, 9 years ago, we really thought people didn't know as much about this topic. And it has come into the zeitgeist, over the past, 4 years or 5 years. And so that actually, for us, creatively allowed us to kind of go back to the film we wanted to make originally, which took out a lot of the experts. We always thought we had to have a lawyer or a journalist there to validate these stories because we thought these stories are so horrific, people aren't going to believe them unless someone like a lawyer comes in. And I don't feel that, and not that that's, but we really thought some audiences might not be able to actually believe the stories that they were hearing. And I don't feel that anymore. I think that survivors are having more of a voice, whether it's on TikTok or on, social media. I think that that movement has grown a lot in the past 9 years. And then honestly, just like Liz's journey, when we met her, she talks about kind of being a little bit more in the shadows. She was a bit more behind John Martin Crawford and his activism. And I think through these 9 years, she really went on a journey of her own activism in terms of speaking up and trying to hold people accountable. And so we kind of just kept following the story.
Wow.
Sometimes.
Wow. By the way, I'm not sophisticated enough, but there's almost a film. There's almost a film here, how you made the film. Think about that.
You
No,
want to do
it
it?
just popped in my head. What a great film, how you made the film. A documentary, how you made the documentary.
Double, okay, like
I don't want to get you guys in trouble, but it's just a thought. I just want to go off topic for a second. One of my favorite journalists, Barbara Walters. I try to copy her sometimes, and she had this one question. And I watched her incessantly. She had this one question that I love, and I use it all the time. It's like my trademark question, and you don't even have to answer it if you want to. One answer to it, whatever. It's just we're just loose. But here goes. Excluding family or friends, excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Oh, wow.
And you don't have to answer if you don't want. It's no big deal.
I have to think about that.
Think about it.
Does anyone come to mind for you?
I would just want to spend a day with all my friends that aren't here to see all this
Oh,
stuff going
well, that's valid. That's
on.
valid. There's no rules here, so that's
Yeah,
absolutely
no,
valid.
I would pick a picnic table for that one for sure.
Okay. Okay.
I'll come back to you.
No, I'll come back to it. No, no worries. So, well, let's go back to um I mean, there's probably other things out there in the world that may relate to this, but how does this film enhance or join the stories of other documentaries that are out there that may somehow have something to do with this? So how would this enhance that? I just think, by the way, I think, I mean, the 9 years is an incredible commitment. And that's such a shining factoid about this documentary, that your passion and your dedication. But anyway, um, what would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there are other projects out there that are and I'm kind of the mind of the more projects the better, because I think they are all unique, and the more we can get people to listen to these stories, I think is great. And I would say for ours, we did spend 9 years really intimately with a few people. And so I think that kind of allows us to get a little bit closer, really bring you into the lives of these people. And I think that's a bit unique to our film. I think also Liz's journey, it's probably one of the only projects I've seen so far that actually does hold someone accountable at the end of it. And so that's a I think a great thing to see and something we feel is really important to share to kind of hopefully inspire others, because these stories are very horrific to hear and they're dark. And so whatever hope we can offer to people in terms of moving forward, I think is a great thing too. So
So that's part of the next, I mean, what you just said, Michaela, is part, what do you really hope that people en masse are going to take away from this? For me, even without, I mean, I saw the trailer a couple times, but for me, just the realization of what you've gone through for 9 years to tell this story, that, I mean, wow. And it lit a fire in me because I never knew this existed. So is that the kind of, so am I the kind of response that I just shared with you is what you'd like people to take away?
yeah, I think it's different for different communities, and so I think that's also why we're really excited to show the film in person as many places as we can to actually engage with people in the audience. So certainly people who have never heard about it, we want to inform them and educate them, because it is still happening, and kids are still being sent away. So the more conversations that happen, the better. And then certainly, for survivors, we want to be able to like have screenings and allow support. You're not alone. There's a lot of people that live all around the country that are survivors of these places. And so just to kind of build that community, hold space, your stories are valid, they're important, encourage people to speak out if that's what they want to do and find community. And then more targeted screenings really with therapists about, first of all, not sending kids to these places, but then also maybe how to work with people who come out of these places in a better way. I think Liz might have some stories of when you leave these programs and maybe first you're scared to go to a therapist because that's what you just went through was supposed to be therapy, but then often therapists come out and don't really know how to handle some of these stories either. And so I think having engaged discussions with therapists, legislators, and parents, I think we really want to reach parents both to become aware of the dangers of these places so that they stop sending kids or are more thoughtful in where they send their child if they need to send their child somewhere. But also to, engage with their family members or anyone who went to one of these places. So we meet a lot of families of people who have said, oh, my sister went to one of those places, but we've never talked about it. And so I think if it's right for people just to make sure they're engaging in conversations overall.
Funny, I'm listening to you and as I'm grasping and digesting, uh, uh, and because I'm a movie person, I suddenly I had a little flash of um, uh, um, a movie that dealt with mental health things. The Jack Nicholson movie when he's in that mental hospital.
What's over the cookies nest?
Yeah, yeah, the Cuckoo's Nest. And I'm thinking, well, this is of course a documentary, but you know, mental health, and it's not a comedy which you've done. This is real life. Anyway, but listening to you guys, it elicited the pathways up here to start thinking about this stuff. Liz, so and this is it's a really interesting question because we touched on this before I went on air, but there's been some developments recently. I think there was a trial of a former I don't know, choir teacher or something, and who was arrested. And I think you covered that in the film. Uh, uh, um, is there any updates on some of these legal
Yeah.
things?
I mean, the update, he was initially uh, arrested in April of 2024, and the trial began on February 19th of 2025. And at the end of that, on March 3rd, he was found guilty on 4 counts of charges involving criminal sexual activity with children. Um, so he is facing, I think it's maximum of 50 years, but it goes by different statutes. So there's no way to say, but he is currently incarcerated, awaiting his sentencing in July.
Wow. So this is, that's good stuff that this stuff happens. Couple more questions. What is the plan for this film going forward? I mean, by the way, I think this should be shown in every high school in the country to educate. To educate. It should be, standard. I mean, my own uneducated view of this and how important it is. But what's the plan for the film?
Yeah, I mean we'll play a couple festivals, so including Garden State in New Jersey, and we are making plans for educational distribution, particularly. So that's a big part for us, and community screenings that again go to the targeted audiences that we spoke about earlier. And then we hope to make the film wider, like available wider, but I think that'll take us a little time. So I would love to ask the other question to Liz, of like what do you hope people take away from this? Because I'm actually curious.
Oh, really? Oh my God. No, you don't know? I mean, what I hope others take away from this film, um, I want people, human beings who have gone through trauma and especially through the industry, I want them to have real, authentic hope, because for so long, and just having gone through a trial, I mean, I testified less than 2 weeks ago,
Wow.
right? Like on the
Wow.
stand, called by the defense. Okay. That was a that was a great move on their part to call me up. But I really do wish that and hope that it inspires other people just in their own lives, too, to think bigger and to believe that things are possible. It's not like I pulled off like some crazy three-pointer shot, like from behind. This was a really long journey, but if you keep at it, I believe, luck is where hard work and opportunity meet. So I guess I'm lucky in that, and I hope other survivors of abuse, especially of the industry, can look at something and really relate to it and eventually feel that, like me, I no longer feel that I have to perseverate into the darkness of how I have suffered to convince you that what happened to me did harm, because people are more aware, and I want other people to feel the same way that I do.
That was nicely worded. Wow. That's good stuff. Um, my last off-topic question. Do you call yourself a filmmaker, Michaela? Are you a filmmaker?
Yeah, yes, yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
you work
I
on
mean,
non-moving on a film. I didn't mean it.
yeah,
I
no,
didn't
no,
mean
no,
it glib way, but
no, yeah, of
you have
course,
other
yeah.
film projects in mind and that kind of thing?
Not that I'll direct at the moment. So I work mostly as a documentary editor for other
Okay.
people.
Okay.
So I think at least, for this year, we'll just focus on getting this film out to the
Sure.
world.
I'm sure. But I was just curious because I wanted to ask this next question. It's off topic. I'm an indie author, and I'm always looking. I always like to show, my Kirkestar novel here. There's a tortoise in my hair, Journey to Spirit. There's a lot of mental stuff in here too, by the way. But anyway, I like to shut up because I'm an indie author, which means I have this great, uh, powerful affinity for indie film people. That's why I'm here doing what I do. Anything I can do to elevate and promulgate and stuff. But I so greatly appreciate your journey as an indie artist, and yourself too, Liz. And so I watched the Academy Awards, a week and a half ago, and I had this huge takeaway and this huge aha and this great light bulb over my head that went off and got illuminated when Honora won everything, basically. And what really moved me and excited me was the fact that it's an indie film. It's an indie film with it won Best Actress, an LA girl, actually, Mikey, whatever. But Best Director, Best Film. Indie, $6 million budget. In the scheme of things, that ain't much in this world of ours. So, as an indie filmmaker, I thought, just loving indies, that this becomes part of, I'm quoting Aldous Huxley, part of a brave new world that we're entering, of superior, amazing accomplishments for indies. What do you feel?
I hope so. I am a little less optimistic in that realm. I find it much harder to make films now than it was 15 years ago, particularly in the documentary space. Um, I think that the commercialization of documentaries has created kind of a narrow focus of what people will buy and what people will fund. And so making things that don't fit into that mold is hard. And so uh, I hope people still find a way to do it. But that's why I've kept a day job the entire time I'm making this. And I wish that I could have just gone and focused on this film. And I hope there is more to come. I hope it swings back the other way for documentaries, particularly. Um, but time will tell.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. And yes, time will tell. But can't hurt. I don't think everything that we saw there can hurt, and it certainly I think created an awareness, and the more when I worked for this amazing man for 25 years, one of the things he kind of preached is the area between these two earlobes. It's a tough area, and you got to repeat something six, seven, eight times because it goes in one ear and out the other, kind of thing. And you got to repeat it six, seven, eight times. Maybe on the eighth or ninth trip through the earlobes, it gets stuck up here, and you finally learn something. So maybe we've begun, getting that message across with indie films. So, um, we're done for this segment. I can't thank you both enough for being here and taking the time and your passion and your energy and your story and your truth. And again, I'm aboard, and my little microcosmic world is anything I can ever do above and beyond. I'm all yours. You want to both come back and talk and panel and whatever. I just sit in this chair looking for things to do. So please come back. And I wish you great things at GSFF. Truly, truly, truly. And thank you again. Don't leave. I'm just going to stop recording, and we'll do I love saying a 2-minute wrap. It's, a theatrical term, 2-minute wrap. But thank you both.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.